Number 10 was tricked into making out with Ra's al Ghul. In the Batman Beyond series, Ra's ends up having to face mortality and jump ship when it comes to his body when it becomes so broken that the Lazarus pits can no longer heal him. He decides to take Talia's body for his own. Not content with being in the body of his daughter, a woman, he comes up with a plot to get Bruce's old body, which he then plans to make young again using the Lazarus pits. This plan involves Ra's posing as Talia in order to seduce an elderly Bruce Wayne, making him believe that Talia has found the secret to youth and wants to share it with Bruce so they can be together. Oh, how sweet. This plan also ends up involving Ra's and Talia's body though making out with Bruce, which was not something that Bruce signed up for, especially when he finds out, wait a minute, so when I was kissing Talia, I was kissing her dad? Ew. What? What? So crazy. Number 9. Losing his fortune. While we haven't explored the full ramifications of this blow yet, it's likely going to end up being a doozy. Everything that Batman has become was all because of his fortune, and over the years and Tynion's run, he's also become more and more reliable on his utility belt and his fancy gadgets. Batman might just be a man, but his billions have backed him up time and time again, acting as a stand-in often for his lack of superpowers. So what happens when Batman loses all that? In Joker War, Batman was targeted by the Joker and his new number 1, Punchline. He lost his money and for a while his sanity thanks to Punchline's specially formulated Joker venom. TM. This made it hard for Batman to regain control of Gotham, but not impossible. In the end, he realized he needed help and reached out to the Bat family, who helped him regain the city. After Joker was defeated, Bruce decided to let Lucius Fox keep the money as a consolation and a reward for all the years of hard work, as well as, some payment for his time being tortured at the hands of Punchline and the Joker, which was pretty terrible. Honestly, Lucius, you deserve that money. Lucius accepted this offer but told Bruce he wanted no more part of helping him with Batman. Lucius Fox was opting out of that crazy world, so if Bruce wanted to continue, he was on his own. No millions and none of Fox's fancy tech. It'll be interesting to see how much this sets Batman back and how he fights to overcome this challenge. Before we move on, just a quick reminder to click that like and smash that subscribe if you haven't already. Go on, do it, and let me welcome you to the Top 10 Nerd family! Welcome, 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 confetti balloons. Number 8. Bane breaks Batman. This is a pretty terrible one, and yet it's not even the worst point, especially considering Batman did eventually heal and return from this. In Nightfall, we see Batman faced with multiple villains in one night. He's run down and tired, which is when Bane strikes, attempting to take Gotham from the Bat. In an iconic and devastatingly memorable moment, Bane breaks Batman's back, ultimately destroying him. Fortunately, Bruce would recover and return as Batman, but he would need someone to take over for a time. That someone ended up being Azrael Jean-Paul Valley, and passing that mantle on would also lead to some other problems later on for Bats. Number 7. Assaulted by Talia al Ghul. Talia al Ghul may love Batman, but she definitely has a messed up way of showing it. When Damian was conceived, it was not really out of love. Talia actually assaulted Bruce, drugging him and sleeping with him in order to get the child she so desired. All in all, it's really messed up. What's even more strange is it seems like the story of Damian's existence could have been inspired by Son of the Demon, where Talia and Bruce consummate their marriage consensually and Talia reveals she is with child. She later fakes a miscarriage to keep Batman focused on fighting the bad guys and avoid distracting him, but in truth has the child in secret and gives it up for adoption, realizing she and Batman can never truly be together. This story, while still messed up and awful considering Bruce, never knows of his son's fate and it's kept a secret, is still less disturbing than the one we got for Damian Wayne. Drugging and assaulting someone is very much not okay. No, no, no. Don't do it. It's terrible. Number 6. Death of his fiancée. For those who aren't aware, there was a time that Batman was engaged. In fact, there have been multiple occasions where Batman was engaged and married. For our purposes here though, I'm talking about when Bruce Wayne became engaged to his old flame, Silver St. Cloud. Silver has been a Gotham socialite who had a passionate romance that initially ended when Silver learned of the fact that Bruce Wayne was actually Batman. She loved Bruce but couldn't stand the thought of losing him. Years later, she returned to Gotham and ended up falling back in love with with both Bruce Wayne and Batman, breaking off her current engagement to a US senator. Her and Bruce were engaged, and he was even thinking of retiring from the Batman mantle to pursue a normal life with Silver and settle down with her. However, these dreams were cut short when Silver was killed by Automatopoeia, who was posing as Batman's new ally at the time, Baphomet, a man that Batman trusted so much that he even revealed his secret identity to him and welcomed him into the Batcave. Big mistake, Bruce. No wonder Batman has trust issues, jeez. Number 5. Failed Barbara Gordon. One of the hardest failings for Batman was when Barbara Gordon and her father, Commissioner Gordon, were successfully targeted by the Joker. Caught unawares, Babs found herself shot through the spine and paralyzed as a result of the attack. She was assaulted and tormented by the Joker, who took pictures of her in pain and undressed for the purpose of making her father insane. This all happened in Killing Joke, and though not all of the events of that story are canon, Babs' pain and becoming paralyzed were made canon. Batman has always felt awful for what happened to Barbara, has never really blamed her, and if anything, himself feels more guilty for the fact that he wasn't able to protect her. Number 4. Death of Jason Todd. The loss of Jason Todd hit Batman hard, and who is to blame? Those who voted for him to be killed. It's your fault. Well, actually, it might not be your fault. You might have not been alive, or you may have not voted. Anyways, some people don't even believe the vote was real still, that it's all a conspiracy. And yet, I digress. Why this was so hard for Batman was because Jason Todd, of course, was both his ward and his Robin. Though the two had a falling out previously, Batman ended up teaming up with Todd once more to help him find his birth mother. Although they found her, it was revealed that she was involved in a plot with the Joker, which ended up resulting in both her and Jason's death. Batman would never forgive himself for what happened to Jason, and when Jason returned from death, it was made evident that Jason likely wouldn't ever be able to fully forgive Batman either. He's like, I died because of you, because you didn't save me. Which, you didn't save him, so I guess sort of fair. Number 3. Death of his parents. Obviously, one of the worst things to happen to Bruce Wayne happened early in his life and would have to be the death of his parents. Without them dying, he wouldn't be the man he is today, for better or for worse. It's actually an interesting thing to imagine a world where Bruce gets to keep his parents and grows up normally. Would he still grow up normally? I wonder. The death of his parents tormented young Bruce so much that it, along with the freak encounter with the Bat, inspired him to become the masked vigilante known as Batman. So in a way, it's this trauma that has led to so much of the other awful experiences that Batman has suffered through, countless physical injuries, as well as mental and emotional turmoil. Not only that, but the loss of his parents has been a trauma that Batman has never healed from and has carried throughout his entire life. Number 2. Death of Alfred. Although his parents' death changed him forever, he was left with at least one father figure to help him carry on, the faithful family butler, Alfred Pennyworth. Alfred served Master Bruce, but also took care of him and raised him, acting as a father to him. Alfred has come in harm's way a few times in the comics, but one of the most devastating blows that both he and Master Bruce had to suffer came when Bane full-on killed Alfred, snapping his neck. Bane was working to break Bruce fully, and this was just another part of his master plan. He even was part of Catwoman kinda leaving him at the altar, which is another terrible thing that happened here. Bane had taken Alfred hostage and told the Bat family to stay away or else. Damian, however, didn't listen, believing he could take Bane down himself. When Damian failed, Bane killed Alfred, and in so doing, broke Bruce's heart. Number 1. Tortured and killed on repeat. When Joker received 99.9% of Mr. Mixia's Pitilix power, he used it to wreak all kinds of havoc. One of the things he used these new epic reality warping powers for was to torment Batman forever on repeat. Daily, Emperor Joker would torture and kill Batman, although in the end Batman was the key to Joker's defeat, being Joker's one true weakness, since his identity was so closely tied to Batman's. However, Batman was left so traumatized by these events that he became a broken man, a shadow of his former self, unable to operate as a hero. Superman actually had to steal the memories of this experience away in order to return Batman to himself once more so he could resume being a hero and just, not being a complete mess.
Number 10. Beat up by Batman. Superman isn't the kind of guy who takes a beating lying down. So to lose to a guy without superpowers must have been pretty embarrassing for him. In the 1986 miniseries The Dark Knight Returns, this is exactly what happens. After Superman becomes weakened due to a nuclear explosion, Batman uses a mechanical exoframe to get an edge in hand-to-hand combat. An elderly Green Arrow shoots Superman with kryptonite, greatly weakening him, and Batman just pounces. Batman later reveals that he spared Superman by not using more kryptonite and threatens Superman to stay out of his way, telling Superman to always remember that he beat him. If that wasn't enough, Batman also dies from a heart attack after. Later we reveal that it was staged, but still, this must have been a roller coaster ride for comic book fans when it first appeared. Before I reveal number 9, take a second to hit that like button and join the notification squad so you don't miss any more top 10 nerd videos. Now back to Superman's suffering. Number 9. His home planet exploded. As you probably already know, Superman is an alien from the planet Krypton, sent off in a capsule that spared him as his home planet exploded into smithereens. It's definitely gotta be one of the worst things that's happened to him. I mean, not only is his home planet gone, and he becomes a space orphan at like the youngest possible age, right after birth, but because of this, he also believes for a long time that he's the last surviving member of his race. Of course, we do meet other Kryptonians throughout Superman's story, but I can't imagine what it must have been like for him, wondering what once was. He never even got to see what the planet he came from was like in its prime. It's a tragedy for sure, but it's also one of the details that makes Superman seem so noble and self-sacrificing. Earth is his home now, and we're happy to have him. Number 8. He almost made a sex tape? In 1986, scripting for Superman comics was taken over by a writer named John Byrne. He made some pretty good changes, including keeping Superman's parents alive, removing the Fortress of Solitude, and removing some of the more cheesy stuff, making Superman more outgoing and heroic. More proactive, if you will. Anyway, he also made some really weird changes, like creating a villain named Sleaze. Yeah, that's right, Sleaze. He's a perverted alien, shunned from his home planet of Apocalypse and stranded here on Earth. Hoping to save some money and build an army, he mentally influences Superman into almost making a sex tape with his fellow superhero, Big Barda. And it almost happens too, but luckily her husband, Mr. Miracle, arrives and he just shuts the whole thing down. It's the kind of story that leaves you stunned. Honestly, I couldn't believe what I was reading, but I guess when you're the oldest superhero around, you're gonna get into some weird storylines eventually. It's worth noting that Sleaze was a notoriously unpopular villain and eventually dies in an explosion. Number 7. Beat himself up over Lois Lane's death. When you experience tragedy, it's important that you don't blame yourself for what happened. However, in the Infinite Crisis storyline, Superman has a really hard time with this. After hearing a scream from over in Earth 2 and flying there, Superman found that Earth's version of Superman standing over the body of Earth 2 Lois Lane, who had just died. Our Superman lashes out, blaming the other Superman for her death, and the two engage in a massive epic fight all across Metropolis. Man, it's bad enough causing all this collateral damage fighting a supervillain, but who foots the bill for the fight when it's Superman in each corner? The fight is eventually stopped when Wonder Woman shows up and she grabs Superman with her lasso. She helps Superman see that it's really Lex Luthor that's been pulling the strings behind the scenes. Number 6. Had an identity crisis. In the Superman Grounded storyline, Superman is 700 issues deep, and he feels like he's lost touch with humanity. Seriously, it's issue number 700. The solution? He decides to walk across the country on foot and get back to his roots as a hero, helping people with their everyday problems. He passes through Detroit and fixes the employment crisis, repairing factories with alien technology, and in Chicago he rescues a young boy from an abusive father and tries to reinforce that powers are not required to be a hero. He later meets the new Wonder Woman and has lunch with the Flash in Colorado. It's an emotionally grounded story with plenty of the kind of moralizing that comics are known for. He eventually comes to the conclusion that his Superman identity is unnecessary and he could do more operating in secret. But later, he overcomes his depression and embraces his legacy, creating the Superman Squad, embodying the values of truth, justice, and the American way. Number 5. Brainiac killed his Earth dad. Superman has a seriously lengthy history. In Action Comics number 867, Superman discovers a Brainiac drone outside of the Daily Planet and discovers that Brainiac is still somewhere out there, and all the previous encounters with him were actually just one of Brainiac's probes. Superman flies all over the galaxy, seeking Brainiac to try to track him down, and during the search, he's eventually captured and taken aboard Brainiac's ship. As Superman comes to, he learns how Brainiac has been traveling the galaxy, shrinking civilians down and bottling them. He plans to bottle the Earth, but with the help of Supergirl, Brainiac is soon defeated. He has one last trick up his sleeve, however. He learns where Superman's parents live by reading his mind while he's unconscious and launches a missile at the Kent family farm. Luckily, nobody dies in the explosion, but Jonathan Kent actually has a heart attack soon after, and we later see Superman at the funeral, devastated. Number 4. Got replaced by these 4 losers. When Superman died, DC Comics saw an opportunity and created 4 new Supermen, and it was weird. The 4 new characters were based on variations of Superman's slogans: the Man of Steel, the Man of Tomorrow, the Metropolis Kid, and the Last Son of Krypton. The Man of Steel and the Kid, however, are the only ones who actually become heroes, and after some time, the original Superman returns from beyond the grave, and he has to defeat Cyborg Superman and a lethal alien Superman. It must have been really bizarre for comic fans at the time, but imagine how Superman must have felt being replaced 4 times over. Thankfully, he eventually returns to remind the city what a real Superman can do. Number 3. Killed fighting Doomsday. The death of Superman was an epic comic book event in 1993 and even received coverage in the mainstream media. Superman meets his fate at the hands of Doomsday. Doomsday is a rampaging, seemingly mindless monster, a muscular humanoid with bones protruding from his skin. The epic battle causes massive destruction across Metropolis, epically featured in the comic in large splash pages. The creators wanted to show that Superman was not actually invincible and that kryptonite was not his only weakness. This was an epic event. Writers had to sign non-disclosure agreements to keep Superman's death a secret, and Superman comics were delayed for 3 months to help push the illusion that Superman really was dead. Yes, it seems dying is one of the worst things to happen to Superman as a person, but as a character, it likely made him more popular than ever, as in the comics, Superman's death is only the beginning of a much larger story, and he makes a huge comeback. Number 2. Killed a pregnant Lois Lane. In an alternate reality, as part of the Injustice storyline, Superman suffers a real tragedy. After the Joker uses a fear toxin on Superman, he gets all whacked out and he believes he's fighting Doomsday, and he does what Superman does and takes him off up into space to kill him. The fear toxin wears off and Superman sees that it's actually Lois Lane, floating dead in the void of space along with their unborn child. If that wasn't bad enough, Joker has also remotely linked a bomb to Lois's heartbeat, and as soon as it stops beating, the bomb explodes, destroying Metropolis. This makes Superman go buck wild, and he breaks his vow to never kill, punching his arm through Joker's chest and killing him instantly. Now this was an alternate universe, but it's still one of the lowest points for Superman. And now, number 1. He died. Again. Zack Snyder's Batman vs. Superman was controversial for many reasons, including Superman's death. Superman is feared and revered by the city for his godlike power, and Batman has a vision that makes him realize he better do something about it before Superman becomes too powerful. Batman nearly kills Superman using a kryptonite spear, but after hearing Superman tell him to save Martha, Batman realizes Superman isn't really a threat and he heads out to save Martha. While he's doing this, Superman confronts Luthor, who unleashes the monstrous Doomsday to fight for him. Batman and Superman fight against Doomsday together, but they're totally outmatched as Doomsday can absorb and redirect energy. Realizing that they shared Kryptonian DNA, Superman grabs the spear and stabs Doomsday with it, but not before being impaled on one of Doomsday's bony spikes and dying. Later, we see Batman reveal his plan to form the Justice League, and as the film ends, we see the dirt on Superman's grave begin to levitate. You just can't keep a good guy down. Number 10. He became the fattest man on Earth. This bizarre storyline is from 1960, and in it, the evil Gorilla Grodd has transferred his consciousness into human form to confront the Flash. He shoots Flash with a radiation gun that causes his body to absorb excess moisture from the air, making Barry swell up like a water balloon to an alarming and uncomfortable looking size. Not only that, Grodd also erases his memories and sells him to a heartless sideshow owner who puts Barry on display and charges people to come and see the fattest man alive. I can only imagine how cringy it would be to try and read this story today and take it seriously. We get to see a deeply depressed Barry, exploited, embarrassed, and dejected, with little kids pointing and laughing at him. Thankfully, he does eventually recover his memory and his figure. Hey guys, if you like these videos and you want to see more, be sure to take a second and hit that like button. Number 9. His face was disfigured. Not everything on this list is cosmetic, but we'll get into the more emotional suffering later. For now, let's talk about the time Big Sur punched the Flash's lights out. Big Sur is one of the Flash's lesser known villains, but he has some super strength and lands a clean, super powered blow right in Barry's face, and the signature speedster passes out in the bushes at the park. Two kids happen across his body and recoil in horror when they take a peek under his mask. His face is so smashed up it's barely even recognizable. His teeth are chipped, his eyes swollen shut, it's brutal. Seriously hurt, he heads to Gorilla City and gets patched up by his friend Solivar, leader of the super intelligent gorilla race. They heal him up and rebuild his face differently to help keep his identity secret. Luckily, they go with the usual 2 eyes, 1 nose, regular looking face. In the future, advanced surgery helps Flash eventually return to the face that we know and love. Number 8. Almost burned to death. In the Flashpoint universe, Barry doesn't have his superpowers, so he works together with Thomas Wayne, that reality's version of Batman, to come up with a scheme to try to get his powers back, so that he can run back in time and fix the timeline. So the plan is simple: recreate the events that originally gave him his powers, by covering himself in chemicals and then getting struck by lightning. Thomas, for good reason, has a lot of concerns, but Barry races ahead with the plan, and it doesn't go well. He is struck by lightning, but instead of receiving powers, he almost roasts to death, getting 3rd-degree burns all over his body. Thomas bandages up what's left of Barry's skin while he screams in agony, and we see Barry lying on a gurney, soaked in blood and covered head to toe in bandages. It is a bit of a gruesome scene and definitely inspires some sympathy for the Flash. Number 7. Captured and tortured. In Crisis on Infinite Earths, a lot of things got really cranked up. Many heroes were pushed to their limits, and good old Barry is no exception. The Flash gets captured by the Anti-Monitor, and then mentally tortured by the evil Psycho Pirate, who has the ability to manipulate emotions. Barry endures this for weeks, with Psycho Pirate forcing him to relive his worst memories and emotions over and over again. We see poor Barry cowering in the dark, terrified for his life, forced to watch as his fellow Justice League member Red Tornado is killed right before his eyes. When he finally breaks free, he's been through so much emotional turmoil, he goes buck wild with rage and beats on Psycho Pirate until he begs for mercy. Definitely a low point for the Flash. Number 6. His wife Iris West was killed by Zoom. Since the first appearance of Barry Allen in 1956, he's been paired up with Iris West, another DC power couple like Lois and Clark. They've been married and had all kinds of relationship drama. While she's attending a costume party dressed as Batgirl, Zoom waits for her in the kitchen, and when she comes to get a drink, he kills her. Using his speed powers to vibrate his hand at turbo speed, he passes his hand through her skull and does fatal damage to the molecules inside her brain. This causes instantaneous death, and the tragedy of it all is devastating for Barry. Later in the story, his true love is brought back to him through some time travel stuff and reincarnation, but it's still a seriously heart-wrenching moment for the Flash. Number 5. He killed a man. After the death of his first wife, Barry eventually met and fell in love with Fiona Webb, and the two dated on and off. She worked for a senator named Creed Phillips on his election campaign. When Creed is revealed to secretly be the villain Eradicator and later dies, Fiona and Barry realize through the whole ordeal that they really do love each other and decide that they're going to get married. On the day of the wedding, the Reverse Flash, Professor Zoom, shows up again and attacks Barry. The two race across the city fighting each other, but when Zoom switches his focus to Barry's fiancée, Flash goes into a rage and he runs up and grabs him by the neck from behind. Unfortunately, the sheer force of this alone snaps the villain's neck and kills him, and Barry is racked with guilt over having killed someone. The city even has him stand trial, and his longtime friend Wally testifies against him, saying Flash should have done more to stop Zoom without killing him. It's a real low point for Barry, and he's forced to flee to another time period. Number 4. His nephew Wally died. If suffering all this physical and emotional pain wasn't bad enough, Barry has also seen the death of his beloved nephew Wally West. Wally and his aunt are driving, racing to stop Iris's brother from killing the Flash. They end up getting in a car crash on the way, and not wearing seatbelts, the results of the crash are pretty brutal. Iris is left permanently paralyzed, and Wally is thrown from the vehicle. Barry arrives to see Wally's lifeless body on the road, and Iris being loaded into an ambulance. Flash blames himself for not being able to stop the accident, and the death of Wally sends him into a dark period of sadness and guilt. Number 3. Parents dead. Things weren't always this way. way. Maybe it was the success of Superman or Batman stories, but either way, when DC rewrote the Flash's backstory in Rebirth, they gave him the old cliche tragic past. In this new version of his history, his mother Nora is brutally murdered when he's a child. Not only that, his father is wrongfully sent to prison for the crime. And if that wasn't bad enough, his father dies in prison before he can be proved innocent, and the Flash goes through it all alone. It's only later in life that he learns it was the Reverse Flash, Professor Zoom, that murdered Nora and framed his father Henry for the crime to ruin Barry's life. Ironically, the plan backfires, and these events lead to Barry becoming a forensic scientist for the police and then later becoming the hero known as the Flash. Number 2. Returns to the past and allows his mother's death. Alright, we've seen a lot of stuff. How could it possibly be worse? Well, one time, Barry woke up in an alternate reality where his mother is still alive. In the Flashpoint universe, his mother is alive and his father was never framed for murder. It sounds great and Barry gets a nice touching reunion, but there's actually a bunch of other stuff in this universe that's different too. Like Bruce Wayne was killed instead of his parents. On top of that, in this universe, Wonder Woman and Aquaman have basically caused a huge war in Europe, causing massive destruction and devastation. Barry decides he needs to reset the timeline, even though it means losing his mother again. Barry does do the heroic thing in the end, and sacrifices his own happiness to put everything back to normal. Number 1. Sacrificed himself to save the multiverse. In the crossover event Crisis on Infinite Earths, Barry makes the ultimate sacrifice, his own life. The Anti-Monitor has constructed a giant antimatter cannon to destroy the various Earths, and Barry does what he has to do to stop it. He runs against the antimatter to destroy the weapon, running so fast he's going back through time, reliving his memories as his body disintegrates. The pain becomes so intense at one point that he cries out for help with nobody to hear him. He reminds himself that there is always hope, and he keeps pushing even as his body is breaking down completely. He leaves us with a final message that we must save the world, and Barry Allen dies a hero. This version of him anyways.